Hi everyone, welcome again to another Teacher Joseph podcast. Jacob Rees-Mogg, the famous conservative politician and broadcaster, has been telling us why we should oppose any move to introduce digital ID cards. Let's listen to what he has to say.
We can start the new year with some good news. The Daily Mail reports that support for digital ID cards has collapsed from 57% when Starmer first came up with the idea to 38%, with opposition now at 47%. Well, I am in that 47%. I'm strongly opposed to digital ID cards. They are a rotten idea and a fundamental threat to our liberty. The idea that we had floated over Christmas that newborn babies would immediately be given a digital ID is just as sinister, if not worse. I got a new dog over Christmas, a Dalmatian, and that has to have a microchip in it. Horses have to have a microchip in them.
Right, let's just pause there for a moment and think about what he's telling us. Right, there is an element of truth in what he's saying there, because over the holidays, news reports have been surfacing to say that babies could be given ID cards almost as soon as they're born. Let's just quickly look at the news about that to see what's been reported. Right, so over the last while, there's been quite a few headlines about this. Let's have a look. In the Daily Mail, and this is from 2 days ago, newborn babies could be given digital ID. The Times, newborns could be assigned digital IDs alongside their health records. The Daily Express, deeply sinister Labour plans could see newborn babies given ID cards. There's other stories as well. Biometric update, rumoured plan to expand UK digital IDs to newborns. That's newborn babies. Social media as well. Plans for a digital ID system were announced. That's from a day ago. That goes on to talk about newborn babies. The government's own site, of course, doesn't mention it. It's still talking in general terms. GB News, Labour's digital ID scheme could be extended to newborn babies. And it goes on. There's another one on MSN, Microsoft, newborn babies could be allocated the digital ID card. So, sounding very sinister, but we are going to choose one of these stories. Some of these stories are a little bit inflammatory. GB News, for example, is known for its style of reporting. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to choose this one, biometric update, just to see what it has to say. Right, here we are. Rumoured plan to expand UK digital ID to newborns give Tories a chance to attack. So what that's basically saying is the rumoured plan to expand UK digital IDs to newborn babies gives the opposition, the Conservative Party, they're nicknamed Tories. Tory, by the way, means robber in Old English, in case you were wondering. And there's probably a reason why they were given that name, but anyway, it's not inflammatory. We generally refer to the Conservatives as Tories. In fact, I think it's probably how they refer to themselves. Right, Labour government insists scheme will only be mandatory for right-to-work checks. So where did this come from then? There is fresh panic in the UK over rumours that the government is considering extending its digital ID scheme to cover newborns, with issuance tied to the birth registration process. For those of you outside of the UK, you might not know that when a baby is born, within a certain number of weeks, we have to go to a government department to register its birth. And there's been a suggestion made here that giving it an ID card at that moment might be the best idea. It says here the plan is only hearsay, discussed in secret ministerial meetings. And this story was reported by The Times. But it's not without precedent. They keep referring to Estonia. Labour reportedly sees Estonia's scheme, which assigns each newborn baby a unique name upon registration, as a blueprint. Yeah, but our governments always do that, don't they? They always say, "Oh but Australia does it, Estonia does it, America does it, so why shouldn't we?" So about the ID cards, yeah, they've been talking a lot about Estonia. Let's just quickly go through this. It says here, India registers newborns under its Aadhaar digital identity scheme. Ghana and Angola are among African nations that have adopted this practice. And Brazil has also begun registering biometrics at birth registration, in part to prevent baby swaps and abductions. Yeah, well, I kind of get the idea that whether we like it or not, it is coming. So I don't think we can get away from this. But is it now? Do you think they'll be able to push this through? Well, Jacob Rees-Mogg is telling us absolutely we should oppose it. Right, let's see what else it says here. In the UK, the core issue around digital ID is immigration. Prime Minister Keir Starmer's government has framed the project as a way to ensure effective right-to-work checks. Yeah, but we do know in the government page, as we've been reading in other podcasts, this isn't just about immigration. They're also saying, yeah, well, it'll help you when you go to buy your alcohol. And more recently, they've been saying, yeah, well, it will help you when you go to the bank. So I don't think it's just about immigration anymore. Shadow Cabinet Office Minister, that's the opposition, they have a shadow government. He's saying, well, what do babies have to do with stopping the boats? Meanwhile, the government continues to insist that this digital identity scheme will not be mandatory except in the case of right-to-work checks. Yeah, sorry, I don't believe them. But there we are. That story is breaking today and over the last few days. It says here, debates on digital ID and immigration continue to simmer across Europe and look likely to converge at the centre of British and EU politics, alongside free speech and age checks. Yeah, because I heard the other day they're now looking at banning social media for under 16s because Australia have done it. We have this really weird morality. I was saying this to someone yesterday. Sometimes, when provoked, our governments, they tend to look at things in a rather Victorian way. I remember during COVID, somebody asked the question, it was a young girl. She asked the question, is it okay for me to go and stay with my boyfriend for a couple of days? And the answer she was given was, well, during this time of COVID, you should be at home with your parents, considering whether this boyfriend is the man you would like to marry and settle down with in the future. I mean, it sounded like a 1950s housewife magazine, you know? It didn't at all take into account how we live and the chances these days of even having two parents to live with. Well, that in itself is questionable. So, this young lady wanting to stay with a boyfriend received a very morally correct answer. And yeah, our governments are known for this, even in the way they speak. And of course, speaking of the way people speak, you probably have heard there Jacob Rees-Mogg's accent, which is very, very pronounced British. I mean, it comes across as being fake. There's very few people talk in that way these days. So if you are here because you're interested in elocution and the way people speak, we need to spend a moment talking about his voice. I mean, it's nuts. Right, here he is again, and let's hear what more he has to say. He's just bought a new Dalmatian, which is chipped, as the law in England requires it to be. So let's have a listen.
Perhaps next, babies will have to have a microchip in them to go with their digital ID, because what you can track, you can trace, and what you can trace, you can control. And that's why governments want to do this. It is not that they wish to provide us with marvellous services. It's not to make using the NHS easier. It is about control. Just think of the...
Yes, indeed, it's certainly very controversial. And is it all about control? Well, we simply don't know. But many of us, for many different reasons, don't trust the government. Maybe I could be persuaded to trust some government departments or some governments with my personal information. But the problem is, after the next election, who's going to be voted in? And what about the security of a digital ID? That could be stolen, as we spoke about in our last podcast. Jacob Rees-Mogg here is giving us his opinion that almost certainly it's about control. And to use an English idiom, you give them an inch and they take a mile. In talking to many of you around the world, though, you all have ID cards, at least many of you do, just for administrative purposes. And many of you have scratched your head and asked me, how do you run a country without knowing who's there or without ID cards? And it's a good question. It is nice to have a document to prove who you are, but should the government be in control of that document? Should the government know who's all there doing what? That's the concern. Let's listen to Jacob Rees-Mogg again and hear what other concerns he has about ID. Right, here he is again, and you can watch his broadcast on his YouTube channel, which, by the way, is heavily monetized. There's ads every few minutes, but it is very interesting. He's saying what would have happened during COVID time if we had a digital ID, because at that time we were being encouraged to report our neighbors if they weren't obeying rules. And we also had to give our telephone number to shops and restaurants that we visited, because they could contact us if it was discovered that there was a COVID outbreak in that restaurant at the same time. And he's saying, can you imagine what would have happened if we had digital ID at that time? I mean, what he says makes sense, but let's listen to what else Jacob has to say about this.
And that's why digital ID is such a bad idea, because it is not about the convenience of the individual, it's about the convenience of the state. And why am I in politics? Why did I stand for Parliament? I stood for Parliament because I believe that the state is there to help individuals lead the lives they want to lead. I don't think it's there to tell you how to lead your life. I don't want digital ID there to monitor your electricity and your gas usage to tell you that you're not being very green, or to monitor how much you put out for recycling on the same basis. I don't want it to tell you that you've bought an extra bottle of gin when it's Christmas and that that may not be good for your liver. That is not the type of state I want. And the only way to stop the state getting like
I'm just wondering if it was his party bringing this in, would his views be different? And it seems ironic that we have such a deep distrust of politicians, but yet we kind of look to ones who align with our views, even though we don't trust them. Well, we have to take a moment to talk about how he speaks, because as you can see there, he is very, very British. You can sense his concern by the way he moves his voice up and down. We can also uh, see how upset he's getting when he actually moves his arm, because British people, as you know, and as I've been teaching you, we move our voices up and down to get our point across. We expect you to hear that music. Whereas if you watch perhaps another culture, if you watch a newsreader, they get very upset as they're telling you the news. You can see the hands moving. I was watching a Spanish newscast the other day. The guy wasn't over animated, but I could see his hand moving as he was explaining things, you know. And Jacob Rees-Mogg, as he was getting excited there, raised his hand. You know, we often talk about our queen. When she was upset, she raised an eyebrow. I can't even raise one. Oh, I can raise one eyebrow. Takes a bit of practice, doesn't it? Yeah, some people can do that. They can. My grandmother could do that. She could silence a whole room just by raising her eyebrow. Yeah, so that's as good as it gets in UK culture. And you're expected to know when to observe this. So he's a good man to study. His top lip is stiff, his mouth is moving down. But more importantly than that is what he's saying. He's kind of saying, well, you know, you really must resist digital ID. But I rather fear that even if we do manage to defeat it this time, it is going to be coming back. I don't think this is going to go away, especially when the rest of the world are using ID cards. We're going to be getting ID cards of some kind, probably in an optional way, but I don't see us being able to avoid this completely. Although whether this government can push it through, I don't know, because I can see that they're becoming deeply unpopular very quickly. But then all governments are, none of them are any better. I think we just have such a deep distrust of politicians. But there we are. So if you want to watch Jacob Rees-Mogg in full, you do need to go to his channel, which I'll just show you before we go, so you can find it and you can watch. It's a wonderful thing to do your shadowing with, you know, if you're looking for a good voice to practice with, because he is very clear. But please do know that we don't generally talk like that. Even the royals don't talk in such an articulated way. He's obviously very, very well educated and living in his own world of elocution, whatever or whatever that is, I don't know. But here he is again. You can see his website, or his YouTube channel, I should say. Right, you can see Jacob Rees-Mogg is his YouTube channel. So you are more than welcome to go and listen to the full speech. Very interesting, good voice to shadow with. But please do remember, we never talk that way. Okay, it's very fake. Well, not very fake for him. I mean, presumably he's very, very well educated. But in general, you're not going to find people on the streets, at least not people of our stature anyway. Right, so just say no to digital IDs.